Here are my college football playoff predictions entering week 9 of the 2025 college football season. Let's roll it. So, I have the seeding as follows. I have USF occupying the G5 automatic berth at the 12th seed. I have Notre Dame getting in at 10-2, winning out. They'll be the 11th seed. A&M, they go 10-2. I think they drop some games here and there, losing to, I believe I had them losing to Texas and Missouri. I think A&M is more likely to go 11-1 than 10-2, but I settled on 10-2 just due to the tough road spots there and the fact that I'm speculating a bit on Texas improving. Before I continue, liking the video, watching the video all the way through, and commenting your thoughts down below are the best ways to support the channel, as they help push me into the algorithm, help me to receive a larger paycheck that I can use to reinvest in producing elite analysis for you all. Subscribing to the channel, hitting the notification bell, sharing the video around, and supporting us in other ways that you can find out via the description are other awesome ways to support our operation at College Football with Sam. We are becoming the best. We want to be the best. Thank you all for making that possible. And Missouri playing better than they did against Auburn and continuing to have success, despite the easy start and easy schedule so far. I have Michigan at 9th, winning out. This is another one where I think they're more likely to go 9-3, but given how they looked against Washington and the fact their offense has looked better really every game, there are some bumps in the road, but overall the trajectory is up and the defense showed progress. And Ohio State is, no matter what they do, it seems they have issues running the ball. I think that Michigan still has some matchup edges to potentially exploit in that game. So with it being at home and with Ohio State, Michigan will probably be their toughest offensive test by a mile all season long. I think Michigan just happens to beat them in this scenario. You can check again, maybe next week. Last week I had Ohio State winning that game probably by 10 points. So maybe next week I'll change my mind again. It's a 50-50 game, side with Michigan as they're at home. And I think that what they did without Justice Haynes against Washington was more impressive than what Ohio State did of full strength against Wisconsin. At 8th, I have Texas Tech winning the Big 12, but because of that loss to Arizona State, the week out of conference schedule, and the fact that, like, let's face it, the Big 12 will be punished for their strength of schedule. They'll give Tech a home game, but they won't give them an easy game. They'll host Michigan in the first round. 7th is Oklahoma, winning out 10-2 outside of their trip to Alabama, which I think could be very ugly. They will host A&M. Ohio State wins out, loses to Michigan. They are tied. Michigan, Oregon, and Ohio State all are for second in the Big Ten. Nod due to strength of schedule. The combined conference record of their opponents goes to Oregon to go to Indy. So Ohio State sits at home, gets like additional time of rest. Very scary for a Ryan Day team to get. They're 11-1. They host Notre Dame, rematch of last year's national title game. And finally, we got Miami, 12-1. They win the ACC. They win out at the 5th seed, hosting USF in a rematch. I think Oregon, 11-1, they win out, except they lose to Indiana again in Indy. Indiana will be 13-0. They will get the Rose Bowl at home. Georgia, 12-1. They will win the SEC rematch with Alabama. I just think that Smart, once again playing in Atlanta, isn't going to be bested twice. And Kalen DeBoer, SEC runner-up, going to get the 3rd seed. Some of those bowl allotments probably should be changed. Like Oregon should get the Cotton Bowl, and Alabama the Sugar Bowl, or maybe Alabama the Orange Bowl and Georgia the Sugar Bowl, depending on who they get. So that's on me for not having that be changed. But anyway, they allot those based on who they think gets the best advantage. So like there's not much of a difference in changing those venues. Maybe a little bit. But they would most definitely give Indiana the Rose Bowl, given they're from the Big Ten. Or maybe they'd give it to Oregon, due to the Rose Bowl being pretty far away for Indiana. I don't know. I don't know what the committee thinks. Some of that's random to predict. But we can move on now to the next round, where I think Miami pretty handily beats USF as expected. I think Tech, given the travel and given the fact that the way Michigan will want to play ball in a game like that with how good Tech's defense is, I think they'll want to play similar style of games where defenses lead with the defensive line and they try and lean on you with the ground game. Michigan's ground game at full strength might be a little bit better than Tech's. I do think Tech's defensive front is better, though, and their receivers are certainly better. So I think Tech would win this in a close game, especially since now, with Dominic Zavada not being the nation's best kicker, he's still pretty good, but he's not elite like he was last year. I can't totally give Michigan the edge in close games anymore, as I could preseason with that kicking advantage. Just can't do it. So they'll beat Michigan, move on to the Rose Bowl in the same way that Miami will move on to play Oregon in a New Year's Six Bowl. Ohio State, I think, would handily beat Notre Dame. Chris Drew and I were talking about this on a segment we did today that'll be released within the next 12 hours. He thinks Notre Dame could challenge Ohio State, and I understand the sentiment. I respect Chris. Chris is a better sports guy, more knowledgeable, better than I am. He inspires me. I respectfully disagree with that, though. I think that everyone in that secondary, outside of maybe Leonard Moore, would get cooked by that passing attack. And I think even Leonard Moore could get cooked if he has to play Jeremiah Smith or Carnell Tate the way they've been playing. That would be a bad matchup. Notre Dame would get points, don't get me wrong. And if it were neutral field or at Notre Dame, I could see what he's saying. But with it being in the shoe, actually, you know what, Chris, if you're listening to this, I just talked myself into agreeing with you. Yeah, I don't think as good as Ohio State's defense has been, Notre Dame's offense has been good enough to where Ohio State will be forced to try and take away one of the pass or the run, and Notre Dame will just excel at the other and score points. And Notre Dame can probably do enough defensively because Ohio State's one-dimensional offensively to maybe pull out a win. But this is projected to be in the horseshoe. I think that if Ohio State could exploit Notre Dame's secondary, they will. Like, if they're given the opportunity, if Sayan's playing well and their defense is doing enough, they should. So I think Ohio State would win that game and move on to play Alabama in the quarterfinal. And then you got A&M against Oklahoma. I just like A&M's depth and coaching more. And since there isn't a massive travel disparity between the two stadiums, these teams both play in the SEC, and they're both going to play some tough schedules, but especially Oklahoma as the year goes on. I like A&M's depth to actually outlast Oklahoma here. So they'll be the first road team in the playoffs in my projections to win a first-round playoff game. In these quarterfinals here, I think Oregon beats Miami. I think that one's pretty simple. I think that Oregon and Miami are similar at wide receiver, quarterback, offensive line, defensive line. One problem. I think that Oregon is better coached. I think they're better at running back, tight end. I think they have a higher ceiling on the offensive line, actually. Like, they don't have Francis Mauigoa, but I think their unit cohesively is better. And I like them more at defensive back. So I think that it'd be a close game, it'd be competitive, but Oregon would ultimately triumph. Indiana is a better version of Texas Tech. Both punch well above their weight class, both lead defensively on the defensive line, and their quarterback wide receiver play leads the way, and then their trench play dominates the weak and is good enough to last against the strong. Indiana's a better version of Tech. It's 2021 Michigan-Georgia theory. I think Indiana would win that game pretty decisively. Ohio State, Alabama's tough. Those are my top two power-rated teams. I think Oregon will surpass one of them at the end of the year. But in a lot of ways, that matchup would be the de facto national title game. My reason for picking Alabama would be that bye, seeing what they could do against Notre Dame, and also the idea that, look, Ohio State's defense is better. Overall, it's much better than Alabama's. But I think Alabama's secondary is a tinge better. And while I think Ohio State has better receivers than Alabama, I don't know whose pass protection is better, and I don't know who's better between Simpson and Sayan. So there is a chance Alabama has the air attack advantage here. And if that's the case, and I think it's the case, but we'll see. Ohio State has shown even when they want to run the ball, they can't. Alabama was able to run it well enough against Missouri to where I think, yeah, they have something there. So even though Ohio State statistically would have the edge in the run game, their run offense versus Alabama's run defense compared to Alabama's rush offense versus Ohio State's, I'd actually trust Alabama to at least match Ohio State in that category, at least as of right now. So I would pick them to beat Ohio State, move on. They'd play Georgia in the Peach Bowl. Georgia would beat A&M. It would be close, very close, but I like what I see out of Georgia's offense more, and a lot of these SEC teams that are really good, maybe it's because the SEC has a bunch of good offenses, but the defenses have not impressed me so far. So in a game where both teams, have issues on defense and you're only going to get a few stops, I expect Smart to do a better job of engineering those than Elko. But this would be that, along with Ohio State, Alabama, would be the most competitive of the quarterfinals by a mile. So unlike last year where all the teams that got a bye lost, this year I think all the teams that get a bye will win, at least in this projection. In reality, the likelihood of that happening is small. I have Oregon beating Indiana, third time's a charm, and I have Alabama beating Georgia. So regular season matchup to championship game matchup to semifinal matchup. Pretty incredible. This is what the 12-team playoff brings us, whether you hate it, whether you love it. This is a definite possibility. I mean, think of like Ohio State, Michigan. I mean, what if Indiana loses to Penn State? What if Oregon loses to Iowa and Ohio State wins out, but Michigan wins out? They face off and Michigan wins, and they rematch in Indy, Ohio State wins, and then they rematch again in the playoffs in like the quarterfinals or something. Probably won't happen this year, but in the future, it's possible. I mean, these things might happen. What about Ohio State? I mean, Ohio State, that really can't happen with them outside of that Michigan game because Penn State sucks and they don't play Indiana or Oregon. But last year, if they beat Michigan, they get to play Oregon again in Indy. They'd be favored. They probably win. They could have rematched again with Oregon in the postseason. This stuff happens. I'm picking Oregon to win because I think long-term they have higher upside than Indiana. I don't want to doubt Cignetti. At this point, I'm pretty convinced that if Indiana gets to the Big Ten title game, they'll win it. Because I think if Ohio State goes, after the win over Michigan, they're going to be flooded with emotions. And I think that Day is an emotional coach, and Cignetti is more even-keeled and is the best game planner and game day coach in America. So I'd like Indiana in a rematch with Ohio State where they have the motivation factor. They'll be the underdog. I'd like them to get them there, and I had that being the case in a previous CFP bracket where I had Ohio State winning it all, but their one loss coming to Indiana and Indy. It's the same thing here where I had Indiana and Ohio State rematching, but Ohio State beating them because I think in the playoffs the most talented teams will win. And Indiana has the advantage of being older and being extremely well coached. That doesn't always have a lot to do with talent. And since Ohio State and Oregon and like Alabama, they're well coached on top of being very talented, that in theory gives them an edge over Indiana. If Indiana manages to go 16-0 somehow or happens to win it all, good for them. And at this point, it wouldn't surprise me. Nothing would surprise me at this point. But I am going with Oregon to beat Indiana. And for Alabama beating Georgia, I think Alabama matches up well with Georgia. I think that they are the better team. This doesn't need much explanation. I just picked Georgia to beat them that one time in Atlanta because I think Smart has, a trick up his sleeve that he could use against Alabama. Like something that I don't know of, but he does earn those wins and pull them out of his hat. And I would have Alabama winning it all. It's Kalen DeBoer versus Dan Lanning. You have the obvious coaching edge. I'd actually like Indiana to match up better with Alabama than Oregon, almost for that reason. Like on top of Indiana having the better run defense and better staff, and probably having the better pass defense. I think Indiana's a better defense than Oregon. Oregon just has that, that ceiling to them where if it clicks, it's better than what a lot of teams can produce. But in a game against Alabama, where you have the prior history of the two coaches head to head, and you also have, Lupoy, who's I think still an inferior mind to Bryant Haynes, to Matt Patricia, to Kirby Smart or Glenn Schumann. And honestly, I don't know if he is better than Kane Womack. I don't. Having similarities at defensive coordinator and offensive coordinator, and the head coach goes one way, on top of currently, how the teams are constructed. Alabama's older, they're more experienced, they have the higher blue chip ratio, and they'll, I think be the better team at that point. That's why I'm picking them to win. You can tell probably with how I'm stumbling over my words that I'm not confident in this, and I'm not. I think this will be wrong. I don't think there's a chance this may not even be close to accurate. And that's because this is hard to project, and also because it's been that much of a chaotic season so far. Yes, Ohio State's undefeated, but Indiana's undefeated. That's chaotic. Indiana beat Oregon on the road. That's chaotic. Florida State beat Alabama, and Alabama, I think, will win it all. I think it'll be the teams who I think are going to win it all at this point are Alabama, Ohio State, Oregon, Indiana. If I had to add one other team to the list, it would be... Oh, I have such a hard time with this. I don't even know. Maybe I'll make a video on that this week. Who are the teams who can win it all and why? Thanks for watching this video. Make sure if you haven't already to like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, comment your analysis and thoughts down below so I can reciprocate my thoughts with you in the comment section, and check out anything on these end screens that are up here. Whether it's a recommended video or playlists for teams that I'm talking about in a preview, prediction, or a reaction, make sure to hit the notification bell on those, scroll through them, and watch any suggested videos if you are interested. Thank you for helping College Football with Sam become the best and the biggest college football brand and channel on YouTube and other social media platforms. We will reach that one day because of your support.